All right, we want to return now to parental rights issues. And if there's someone in Rhode Island who pretty much has a handle of everything going on in the state when it comes to what they're teaching our kids in schools and parental rights, it's Laurie Gaddis Barrett. Laurie, welcome back to In the Dugout. I see you're playing ball with us today. What cap do you have on?
This would be a Smith & Wesson cap.
Oh, okay. And if there's someone who has a handle on what's going on when it comes to education and parental rights on a national basis, that's Parents Defending Education. And here to represent them today, back with us on In the Dugout again, is Alex Nestor. Alex, welcome back. And you've got the Team America cap on today.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, I know you're both aware of the situation with Kristen Cobo and Christina Balistrieri in New Jersey, the two moms who were sued by the school librarian. Whether you saw my interview, which is one of our top performing videos of the year, let's start with Laurie. Laurie, you referred them to me for the interview. Whether it's the interview or just their case overall, what's your comments on what's going on down there?
Well, I believe I saw the interview and those two just blew me away. I mean,
Yeah.
What amazing, well-informed moms, really. And I really just love the way that the parent network is working across the country, right? Because I actually got to know Christina through a guy named Dan Kleiman, who writes a lot about the American Library Association. So it was just really fun to see them on air. I thought they gave some really good advice, and I think the critical takeaway for me was the advice to refrain from calling some of these books pornography, because it really doesn't meet the definition of pornography, and refer to it instead as, like, hypersexual books that are age inappropriate. And I think that's good advice.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more, the lessons, but yeah, they were terrific ladies. Alex, you've I know you're aware of the situation as well. Your thoughts on, look, I position this is just one way that the left is fighting back. They're being cornered, they're being exposed, light is being shined. What's the right word there? Shined?
Yeah, I don't know. Shined, I think.
Light is being shined on their perverse agenda, and they're scrambling now. And one of the tricks from the left is to sue. And your thoughts on those brave New Jersey moms?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always good to see parents stand up and look. This fight has been going on for years now. We're kind of, I think, going into like year 3 of this fight, really, at the very basic level. This is parental involvement in their kids' lives and in their kids' schools. So it's really encouraging to see parents still standing up and fighting this fight, even though we're so far into this, and parents constantly face attacks either from their own school board all the way up to, the Biden administration and the federal government. So it's just encouraging and heartening to see parents actually, still taking a stand when they need to.
Of course, you're referring to the domestic terrorist label that is sort of been applied and sort of tacitly endorsed by the Biden administration. Laurie, in Rhode Island, I don't know if she was the first. Maybe Alex can comment on that in a second. But of course, at least one of the first parents to be sued was our good friend Nicole Solis, who was actually sued by her teachers unions for asking too many questions about, it wasn't about the sexual content, it was about the critical race theory agenda in her, what is she, South Kingston schools. So this is not, these New Jersey moms are not the first to be sued. The system is fighting back.
And the system is definitely fighting back. And, there's another mom, Meg Brock, who's involved in litigation in Pennsylvania. There's Nicole actually is friendly with another mom that got sued by the teachers union in a different state. And I really think, in many ways, like sometimes I think the state is taking a playbook from the parents, right? From Parents Defending Education, because they're filing lawsuits too. So I think lawfare is probably the way to go for the future, and anyone can do it.
Yeah, lawfare is the way. You have Alex, talk about what Well, why don't you just talk about all the lawsuits you guys are involved with? Because you guys have been very robust in that area, and we thank you for that work. So go ahead. What's the strategy there? And talk about a few cases.
Yeah, I'll talk about three main ones. And I just want to say first that I am not a lawyer and I'm not the one that's mainly involved in these. So please, bear with me with some of the terms because again, not a lawyer, did not go to law school. But yeah, that's something that's really wonderful that Parents Defending Education, my boss, Nikki Neely, has kind of done to, fight this battle. When we launched, our first lawsuit was in New York City. And surprisingly, it was actually, we were siding with the New York City public schools because they were being sued from an outside organization that said that the public school systems, honors track programs were racially discriminatory based on the number of students of different races who are in these programs. And of course, that was, kind of one of the first battles, I guess you could say, in the war on merit. We're still waiting for a decision in this case. We basically kind of like filed to sort of represent the school. It's in like the New York State Supreme Court at the moment. And of course, these things take a long time. But basically, the bottom line in that case was defending merit. Schools, public schools should have these tracks. Kids should not be, like determined their qualities or eligibility for these programs should not be determined by their race. So that was that lawsuit. We also sued the education department recently because their parental rights council, or parental inclusion council, was not actually made up of a diverse or groups of parents that have diverse perspectives. It was very much so aligned with teachers union priorities and whatnot. And instead of including groups like Parents Defending Education in this council, the Biden administration elected to eliminate the council. And you still see Miguel Cardona saying, "Oh, we're all for parental rights." Yeah.
Your lawsuit there had a real direct impact, didn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And then the last one I'll mention is our case against Linn-Mar schools in Iowa. And this one specifically speaks to parental inclusion and gender policies. So their gender policy there says that parents, might not be told if and when their child decides to live as another gender identity at school.
Where's that case? Where is that case?
Linn-Mar, Iowa.
Okay, Iowa. Okay.
In a similar case, we have actually the most recent lawsuit against Olentangy local schools in Ohio, in my home state. Similar policies there, but we focus that one more on the First Amendment perspective because that one specifically said students could be punished for misgendering their peers, both in school and outside of school. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but I hope that kind of gives a good overview of the different things that we're fighting.
Well, Laurie, you're involved in, I don't want to talk about the lawsuit. I'm making a different point, but you and a group, you organize a bunch of plaintiffs in the Southwell versus McKee school mask mandate lawsuit against McKee and the Department of Health. Now, in lawfare, it can be very expensive, right? Now, so you guys did a private pay with a local attorney who's doing a great job, and I know he's doing it, to help as much as he can to help out parents. But there are public interest litigation groups out there that represent parents and other citizens denied their constitutional rights on a pro bono basis. So lawfare is the way to go, Laurie, but it's not always easy to find a pro bono representation, is it?
It's not. And I mean, there are some amazing groups out there doing some amazing work, right? The Alliance Defending Freedom, you've got Judicial Watch, Goldwater Institute, which is the law firm that's representing Nicole Solis.
We were the ones who introduced Nicole to Goldwater, so we through our network. So we're pleased to played a role in that. Keep going. I'm sorry.
The Legal Insurrection Foundation launched the Equal Protection Project, and they've just recently brought, I think it was Minnesota, they were offering stipends, but only to for internships, but only to non-white candidates. And so they're of course rethinking that policy now. They're also the ones that convinced the Providence school system, they're challenging those repayment of loans, teacher forgiveness loans. So I mean, there's a lot of amazing work going on out there for free. And of course, reach out to a parent leader in your state or reach out to, Alex or I, and we can try to find you that national litigation. But at the end of the day, everybody's responsible for standing up for what they believe in. And if you cannot find a national litigation firm, you can still find perhaps an attorney that's willing to work with you on payments and work with and find expert witnesses that are willing to do the same. And you too can participate in lawfare, and in many cases get it crowdfunded.
Yeah, and we should give a call out to Greg Piccirilli, the local attorney who's helped so many people in our state and has won some big victories, including most recently the Barrington fired teachers. Alex, your group, when you guys do lawsuits, I assume you're pro bono?
I am like not involved in this.
Okay, all
No,
right.
we are structured as a membership organization.
Okay,
So I don't know. I don't want to speak on how
no
the
problem.
works, but I believe it is us because we are suing on behalf of parents in a certain district.
I do want you to speak on this. And here it is. This is related before we go there, I first got to ask Laurie. All right, so Laurie, we had you on I don't know, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, to talk about the Smithfield controversy where the school committee would like to have the policy where they will notify parents because it is the parents' domain if their kids are wandering down this transgender path. First of all, can you give us an update, Laurie? Then I'll go back to Alex on that situation in Smithfield.
Sure. So when I was last on speaking about it, I spoke to you and your audience very briefly about a doctor from California named Dr. Erica Anderson, who's transgender, former board member of the WPATH or WPATH, which sets the global standards for transgender care. I was able to connect Dr. Erica Anderson with the Smithfield School Committee. And I was able, and she, Dr. Anderson was amazing. I spoke on the phone with the doctor myself for several minutes and was pointed to other public documents that support the position from a medical standpoint, that support the position that parents not only have a right to be involved in this school transition plan, but they have, it actually results in better medical outcomes. So that was like super duper exciting. And then once I got the documents, of course, I fired it off to all the Smithfield parents that had contacted me. And they're organizing, they're getting ready. The next step in that process is to have a public workshop on June 17th. And the parents are ready and they're organizing.
Now, you explained something to me the other day. At an official school committee hearing, it's very difficult. There's protocol and even rules against back and forth discussions. But when they set something up as a public workshop, that's when the public and concerned parents can directly engage and have a back and forth with school committee members. Do I have that correct?
That's essentially correct. So here in the state of Rhode Island, there's nothing that the school committee can't speak to an issue in a way that comes to a decision unless that issue is on the agenda. So for the last couple of meetings, this policy has not been an agenda item. However, members of the public have come to speak to it during open forum, and the school committee really can't engage in a back and forth in that way and ask clarifying questions. I mean, they technically could, but most lawyers advise against it because it bumps up against Open Meetings Act law, and you wouldn't want to give the perception that you were coming to a decision during open forum.
Alex, are you familiar? Are most school committees in other states operate the same way? Have the same kind of restrictions?
I mean, when it comes to any type of like public meeting, a lot of these things are dictated by state law. So I would say these things they vary pretty widely state by state. It's a big issue that we run into. I also work on our C4 side, and 501c4 side, PDE action, the politically active side. And when it comes to state law, from both, local school board issues to state legislatures, varies so widely.
All right, so we should also mention at this point that one of the major players, I think even a co-founder of Parents Defending Education, is Rhode Island's own Erica Sanzi, and we love to get Erica on our show. But and I don't know, is she from the Smithfield area? But anyway, she must be tracking that situation in Smithfield. Alex, has Parents Defending Education written or taken any kind of position on that Smithfield situation that Laurie just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we have a dispatch up in particular. A lot of what we do dispatch wise comes from, tip lines, so things that are not already publicly available or reported on. But
Okay.
Erica certainly is incredible at following both what's going on in her state and across, the Northeast region.
Yeah, she is terrific. All right, let's stick with you, Alec, and get your views first. So in New Jersey tried to implement something, a school district, the Hanover School District tried to implement, tried to respect parental rights and said parents deserve to be informed if something, quote, unhealthy, which could be, they see as a transgender protocol could be. And now the New Jersey Attorney General is suing them. Can that be right? Or is this headline wrong?
So there is in New Jersey there was a law passed in 2018 that's a non-discrimination lawsuit, and that is what the Attorney General here is basing this lawsuit off of. And that law, the non-discrimination law, includes misgendering of students, and then also that you don't need parental permission, allegedly, to call a student by a different name or different pronouns. Of course,
This is based on the 2016 Obama era guidelines, right?
so there were the Obama guidelines, certainly. There's also a lot of schools have already started to adopt, even though that, the Biden administration's new Title IX regulations have not actually been entered into the APA. They're not actually law yet. A lot of schools have started to already follow that sort of guidance. So you've got the federal level, you've got the state level. When it comes to actually, what is right and what is wrong here and what parents deserve, parents of course deserve to be involved in that information and know about what's going on in their kids' lives. I have no idea where this whole trend started, where schools or individual teachers believe that they're the ones who should either start or facilitate these
No, because there are kids. The government has an equal parent. Of course, that's no, right?
You cut out there for just a second, but basically, if I heard you or heard, correctly, it was there.
I mean, it's our kids. The government claims that the kids are our kids.
Yeah, there's a concept or a notion that, schools, they're public schools and they should develop kids to be good citizens and members of a community. And there's truth to that, right? We need a good educated citizenry, a good educated, population. But then it goes a few steps too far, right? To have teachers or schools who believe that they can actually direct a child's care and upbringing. And there are, I believe, 16 states now that have laws that are actually, for parental rights, that protect a parent's fundamental right to direct the education, upbringing, and care of their children. Unfortunately, I don't think New Jersey is one of those states.
Laurie, I'm pretty sure, I know you're not a lawyer, and I don't know anything about this, and if you don't, that's just say so. But I'm pretty sure Rhode Island, is like New Jersey, eagerly implemented Obama's 2016 guidance on transgender policies, just like New Jersey did. So the question would be, even if Smithfield did prevail, the school committee did prevail with their parental notification policy. Have you heard any discussion that Rhode Island's Attorney General could on the same kind of bogus grounds also sue the school district?
I mean, I haven't heard.
No, Laurie, let me ask Laurie about that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
But I want to hear what Alex says too.
Okay, yeah.
So, to my knowledge, there is no plan afoot for the Attorney General to step in and sue the Smithfield School Committee, as the Attorney General in the state of New Jersey has done with the Hanover Township. So there's a couple of distinguishing characteristics, right? The LAD laws, or the anti-discrimination laws that are happening in New Jersey, they do say that there is no affirmative requirement to notify the parent if the school wishes to call a child by a different pronoun. And that is a little bit different from what actually happens here in Rhode Island. But here's the other thing that's different about Rhode Island. New Jersey has codified through their State Department of Education what those anti-discrimination laws look like.
Oh.
However, as I was talking about when I was last on your show speaking about it, the transgender policies that were passed here in the state of Rhode Island were essentially forced through by the ACLU and have since, by the way, disappeared from the Department of Education's website.
Oh,
So
really? So they were always just guidelines, right? Not
Yeah.
never codified as law, but they've disappeared?
there is no record of the original quote unquote model guidance, model policy, whatever, again, Alex, I'm not a lawyer either, right? But whatever it is that was originally pushed out to the school committees on behalf of the ACLU is gone from the Rhode Island Department of Education's
Alex, what do
website.
you make of that?
Well, that's super interesting, and it's something that we've definitely seen before, especially after we either post or write a dispatch or flag something for a friend in the media. People know that this stuff is actually not very popular among, a wide swath of people, regardless of your political affiliation. So they get a little embarrassed and they'll take stuff down, which is crazy. I will say the researchers at Parents Defending Education, and I will say other, parent groups we work with, have been really good about saving receipts, downloading those documents, screenshotting those websites for, cases when this happens, because it's happened before.
And I should mention, I neglected earlier, Laurie, you're the lead terrorist at Parents United RI, at Parents United RI. And I think there's another, you guys don't have to comment on this, but I'll just add this comment. You talked about it being unpopular with parents, and I think that's another reason, to Laurie's point, why I don't think this attorney general would sue, because he obviously has plans to run for governor in 4 years. And what gubernatorial candidate would really stick his or her neck out there on an issue that is this, a decision that would, a lawsuit that would be so unpopular with the public. So I think he's smarter than that politically, so I don't expect that to happen. There's also a case in New Hampshire where there is a bill. Let's look at this headline from Breitbart. And whoever knows about this or would like to comment, I'll just open it up. But apparently there was a bill that a statewide bill, not a school district. This would be a statewide bill that would require parental notification about gender identity transitions. Apparently it passed the Senate. The bill had passed the Senate in March, but was defeated in the narrow majority in the House. Alex, you know anything about this?
Well, yeah, we've seen bills like this pop up all over the country. Good parental rights bills that will simply say parents need to be notified if their child decides to, use a different name or pronouns in school. Very simple bill. Again, something that parents of all over the political spectrum would agree on. And it's really unfortunate in this case to see it fail, again, because it is so basic and so simple. But we've seen bills like this fail in a few places. We've also seen some successes, which is great as well. But bottom line, parents should be the ones directing these conversations. And I think it's pretty wild. There are lawmakers of both parties that don't want to touch this issue because it feels a little too politically charged, and that might not be, good for them in a way. But I think that's very sad. I think, there's a serious lack of courage from some people to stand up and do the right thing.
Laurie, that's where I wanted to go with this. Even if a bill failed, lawmakers are on the record as supporting it or opposing it.
That's correct.
And that's important to know where candidates stand on these really sensitive and hot button issues of our time. Now, I've not one gubernatorial candidate, congressional candidate, not hardly any candidate, any major office in this state has ever raised this issue, has ever weighed in on this.
I'm going to push back on that because
nobody in the media has talked about it. I don't think anyone has tried to hold their opponents and use this as a campaign issue. All right. But still, you can comment on it too, but also answer, isn't it important in today's time that every candidate for office, we know where they stand on these important issues?
Absolutely. And so I'd just like to refresh your memory. Ashley Kalis, the Republican gubernatorial candidate against Dan McKay, actually did come out in straight up defense of parental rights. And she did that in multiple times over multiple.
But she never challenged McKay on it in a debate. She never asked him in a debate. She never made a campaign issue out of it, is my point. Okay, anyway,
I'll let
but
that one
talk
go.
about the important,
That
so
wasn't my
we have parental rights bills in this state.
Yes.
We had hearings on it recently.
Mhm.
Like to Alex's point, the leadership's not going to put, Shikarchi and Ruggiero aren't going to put their members on the spot and it's never going to come to a vote in this state. Don't you think? You agree with me on that?
Well, so let me just share. You may recall that the last time it was Representative Patricia Morgan put up a Parents' Bill of Rights.
Yep.
It went to the Rhode Island Department, the Education Committee within the House of Representatives. And the committee is made up of 15 members. 8 of them came out before the bill was even introduced or heard and released a press release swearing that the bill would never become law. In came all the trans rights activists to claim that the bills were anti-LGBTQ. There was nothing in the legislation that mentioned anything like that. And Parents United Rhode Island engaged with Speaker Shikarchi, and we were successful along with others, right? We weren't the only ones, but we were successful in asking and receiving a second hearing for that bill. So it's our understanding that the bill will be heard again in the Veterans Committee. No,
Yeah,
you're
it'll
correct.
be heard. Having a
It will be
hearing, like
heard.
which pretty much all bills have, is very different from actually getting a voting committee and on the floor. Alex, are you seeing a lot of cowardly politicians on this issue?
Well, yeah, and I want to note too, on our C3 Parents Defending Education, we don't endorse any specific legislation, but in terms of just standing up for the principles, for standing for parental rights, it is really sad to see people at the, local, state, and federal level just either not want to touch it because it's too hot button of an issue, or at least the media has made it appear that way. So I think that's really sad. And Laurie's raising a really good point too about who's pushing from the opposite side. It's really just a handful of very, progressive, not even just progressive, but very singular minded organizations that push for one very specific and one very unpopular viewpoint about gender in schools. And they do this at, the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. State level, like we were just talking about, model policies or guidelines on, for transgender students or gender nonconforming students. A lot of what you see from state to state is almost, copied and pasted from one of these organizations, whether it's the Human Rights Campaign, GLSEN, the Trevor Project, or the ACLU, what have you. A lot of them use the exact same language. And that makes the challenge even harder in a way, because you have, these 4 very, massive national organizations that are pushing for this, and they're able to because they're so big at all of these different levels.
That's the playbook. Laurie, and even goes beyond those 4. I mean, we know that the teachers' unions are pushing these controversial and divisive agenda. They're doing so openly. They call for the school mask mandates. They're supporting all this radical teachings and controversial teachings. And as you both referred to earlier, the American Library Association, a national organization, I liken them to teachers' unions. It's a membership organization. Libraries pay dues to join it, and they're overtly out there pushing this over-sexualized and controversial and, critical theories stuff onto kids. So there really is a very powerful coalition on the left, almost overwhelming general assemblies and lawmakers in states and local school districts. Your comments on that, Laurie?
So I would argue that in many ways, the politicization of the American Library Association could be more harmful than the teachers union getting involved. And the reason that I say that is, especially for older kids, they might have, here we call it a block schedule, but they're not in the same classroom with the same teacher all day, every day, right? They're seeing 5 or 6 teachers, math, and then they move on to science, especially at the older grades. So the impact of any one teacher for a particular subject for 1 year is limited, but librarians are the librarian all year long, every grade. And I've spoken with Dan Kleiman about that in the past, and he's convinced me that this is really maybe an area that more parents could and should focus on just as intently as they do what the teachers are actually teaching the kids.
We're going to be interviewing Dan very soon, either this week or next week. He's agreed to do a in-depth He spent, you've mentioned his name a few, he spent most of the last decade or two studying the American Library Association and how influential they are, how far left they've gone, Marxist,
Marxist.
all bought into all this stuff. Alex, what do you know about the ALA, the American Library Association?
Well, yeah, I think what's interesting is the different policies. In terms of library policies, it's interesting to me what comes from the ALA and what comes from local schools too. And there's definitely like an interplay. And, the final result is unfortunately we've seen lots of books or content, both in classrooms, also in libraries, that is just not appropriate for kids. And I think the unfortunate part, and something that we would like to see more of, is when there are school board conversations about, okay, we as a community need to set certain guidelines or standards for what's available to our kids. Parents and community members should be involved in that. It should not be sort of a backroom discussion or something that is, the policies are solely accepted that, the ALA or whomever puts forward. There needs to be parental involvement in this. Parents should know what their children have access to in their libraries. And it is unfortunate to see large, massive organizations, again, including the ALA, push, certain policies or things that are unpopular and that exclude parents.
And they have enormous influence, right?
Yeah, definitely. They're massive.
Wow. All right, couple minutes, one final question, take a couple minutes each or whatever you want. What else that we haven't talked about? Laurie, you're with Parents United RI. What else should our viewers be aware of that's happening when it comes to parental rights or the education of our kids across Rhode Island?
Well, as you know, we do tend to get involved in a number of different issues. And so after talking with the leadership team at Parents United Rhode Island, we're really excited to start engaging in our special election for Congressional District 1. And so we will be forwarding to all of the candidates questions about their educational policy and specifics on how they intend to support parents. And we're going to be keeping a list as to who responds and how they respond, and publishing a legislative scorecard to help parents in the state of Rhode Island make an informed decision about their potential future representative.
Well, we'd love to help raise awareness about your report card once it's produced. So please let us know. Alex, what else is you guys do so much on the law front, on the advocacy front, the media front, just like you're doing right now. What else should we know about trends, good trends, bad trends across America?
Well, I'm a pessimist, so I'll start with the bad trend. We have a tracker of school districts across the country that have student policies that we call parental exclusion policies, essentially policies that say a child or a school district has the right to not inform parents if and when their child decides to use another name or pronouns at school. So that is right on the front page of our website. I highly recommend everyone to look through their state, see if their district is on there. There are 847 school districts across the country. That was as of yesterday. I'm sure the researchers have probably added more at this point, but that covers more than 9 million students. So that is almost 1 in 5 students in the United States go to schools that have these policies. So there's that. And I just always like to point people to our indoctrination map as well. That has, tons of incidents. You can see trends in your state, national trends, and again, find your school district to see if there are any incidents from the past few years that you should, know about, be aware of. And then the last thing I want to say, just because you scrolled right past it, is we have a comment portal for anyone, parents or whomever, to submit comment to the Biden administration on their forthcoming Title IX guidance, which includes, issues like gender identity, obviously, but also, women's sports, which is, I was a, athlete growing up, not a very good one. So I could not imagine competing against biological males, in high school and in college sports. So take a look at that, submit comment if you have time. We've submitted for the first round of public comment last year, we submitted over, I believe it was 35,000 comments to the Biden administration, which is great. So if you have time, submit a comment, share your thoughts on Title IX. So sorry, that was like three different things, but
No, that's important. Yeah, that's your website is full of information about all you do, all the stories you're monitoring, and we thank you. So Laurie, as always, thank you for not only your appearance today and in the dugout, for all the great referrals you send to us. I mean, you two ladies just like our focuses of information. It all funnel seems like everything funnels through you two one way or the other. So Alex, thanks again for joining us on In the Dugout.
thank you.
And Laurie, as always, we'll have you back again soon. Can't wait to see that report card. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And of course, we thank you, our audience, for tuning in. Stay tuned for more. Look, parental rights and what they're doing to our kids and teaching our kids, I think, is the most important issue of our time. We're going to do our best to make it a major issue in the coming months and years. So for In the Dugout, Mike Stenos out. See you next game.